Good morning, everybody. Foster here for Fridays with Foster. Got a visual display behind me, so I was a minute late making sure that the markers work. It's funny, it's been a while since I've even opened my whiteboard, I'm embarrassed to say, and that's mainly because I don't have clients in my office right now. We're meeting via Zoom. Normally I do a decent amount of work on my whiteboard and like bringing it out. It's helpful for me because I'm visual. Anyway, good morning. It's a kind of rainy, day and actually week coming up. So, which for me is fine. My wife was kind enough yesterday to overseed the grass to try and beat the rain while I was working. So we're excited about that. Now, coffee. So I'm a little bit upset. Not upset. I'm a little bit bummed. My shipment, which is normally in by the, 8th, 9th, 10th, I don't know, COVID. My shipment from Pete's is not in yet. So what I actually did was I was having an issue with delivery, coffee delivery coming from, or my ordering, not really just the delivery, from Nespresso. So I bought some Illy Nespresso suited capsules. And I think it was Bed Bath & Beyond. So this is their most robust flavor. I believe it's called Forte, and we'll go ahead and give it a shot. Oh, it's not really that good. Let me see if I can describe why before I just tell you it's not that good. I don't know, bitter on the tip of the tongue, tip to the middle. Anyway. Maybe I just need to warm up to it a little bit. We'll try it again in a minute. Again, I'm drinking it, espresso style. So, all right. So, what we're going to talk about today, we are going to talk about price increases versus discounting. So, first thing we're going to talk about is the idea of price increases. So, two wonderful quotes by Warren Buffett. One is, you can determine the strength of a business over time by the amount of agony they go through in raising their prices. Wonderful quote. How difficult, how challenging is it for you to raise prices? The other quote that he has that's really great is, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So the question I have, and we're going to touch on the raising prices first, when was the last time you raised your prices? If it's been a while, and a while meaning maybe even 6 to 12 months, take a look at your vendors. When was the last time your vendors raised their prices? And if they did raise their prices, okay, well, who covers that cost? If you're not increasing your pricing as well, that means essentially you're paying the difference and it's coming off your bottom line, or depending how your P&L works, maybe off your cost of goods sold. So, question would be, how do you evaluate your pricing? There are various ways to do it, from a competitive analysis, et cetera, et cetera. Do you know what your competitors are charging right now? Have you seen it? Have you been out there and looked? If you're sending quotes, do you have a relationship with the companies that can maybe, if they can't give you the other quotes, which a lot of times, most of the time they can't, they can just tell you where you were off, or maybe how far off, percentage-wise in certain areas you may have been. So the problem with this, and this is why a lot of people hesitate first, or one of the reasons people hesitate with raising prices, they don't know their margins. So do you really know your margins? And I would look at it almost like a gross profit margins, because it's difficult for a lot of people to go into their business, determine it's definitely possible, but it's difficult to determine their fixed expenses. You've got your gross profit and your fixed expenses, and then try and figure out a percentage of whatever your gross profit or whatever your units are in determining your net profit per unit. It's definitely possible to do it, but it can be challenging, especially if your books aren't done right, meaning if they're not categorized appropriately and there are more fluctuating costs than there should be, maybe on the bottom half. I've had people I've worked with before that actually had owner's draws coming out of the cost of goods sold and things of that nature that just skewed the numbers. So you have to make sure your numbers are right. So the real question again is, do you really know what your margins are? Okay. If you don't, then you probably want to look into that before you go adjusting prices one way or another. I think a lot of people are usually surprised the first time they look at their pricing and their profits. So manufacturing companies will have a profit per unit or something like that that they'll bring out. If they really break down an average and start tracking the labor hours and the materials that go into each unit, I think they might be a little bit surprised at what they'll find. If they're not that surprised, usually you can take it a couple more steps down the line. Do they pay a commission out of that? Is there any separate fees coming out of that for transportation or delivery or things like that and logistics? So those are all things to take into consideration when you're trying to determine what your profitability is. All right, now we talk about discounting. Oh, discounting. So there's a great quote first by Seth Godin. He says, perhaps the reason that price is all your customers care about is because you haven't given them anything else to care about. So they're really ultra focused on price. That's one thing. My favorite quote, and that's, I'm going to call it anonymous now, and if I'm wrong, somebody can call me out on it. I cannot remember where I heard it, but is that a discount is a financial apology for not believing in your product or service. I'm going to say that again. A discount is a financial apology to your customer for not believing in your product or service. So, do you currently discount, right? Do you know if your customers buy on price or on value? It doesn't mean that they're price apathetic. They don't, most of the time, they don't not care what the pricing is. But if the value's there, they're going to buy on value as opposed to price. So the question for you in your business, what value do you give? Do you know the value that you give? Do your customers know the value that you give? Do you have a unique selling proposition that you can utilize to show value in your product or service? One of the big problems that we have is we think our customers know how we do what we do, sometimes behind the scenes, the way we run the business, the things we do to ensure that our products and services are exactly as high quality as we claim and as people pay for. So now mind you, there are some exceptions on discounting. Not a lot, but I'll tell you, most people don't use this as a reason. So if you know your your sales volume, number of transactions per customer, maybe the lifetime value of a customer. So once somebody buys from you once, and we'll go over the ladder of loyalty during another Friday with Foster. But when they buy from you once, they're not a customer, they're just a shopper. So when they shop from you once, do you know what percentage of those people actually come back and continue buying? And then if they do, how long are they customers of yours on the average? And then how many times do they buy through their entire relationship with you? That's lifetime value. If it takes a small investment, which is what a discount is you're paying money to get somebody in the door, maybe from a point of marketing or something, but you know that once you get them in, they'll be paying full price for the next 3 years and we'll have 15 or 20 transactions or more, whatever it might be, then it will work out in the end. But not all companies can afford to do that. So you have to be very careful. They can't always afford to lay out the discounts in the beginning and then and wait to recoup them in the end. So let's talk about some numbers. If you would like to, I can definitely send you a document. I'm hoping you can see this up here. The green's a little light. So green, obviously, for money is increasing pricing. Red is discounting. So I'm just going to give just a basic general example of the difference between price increases and from a financial standpoint, price increases and price discounts. So when we look at price increase. So we're going to say for both of these, this here stands for margin, right? So you have to know your profit margin in order to do this. So we're going to say that both of these have a profit margin of 30%. Okay? So you have to know this moving forward, right? Or else you're going to be in trouble. Now, if you want this to be gross profit versus net profit, that's fine. Either way, you're going to end up taking more down off the line if you're just dealing with gross profit. But what we're dealing with now is we're dealing with pricing. We're not necessarily dealing with profit and figuring out specifically what that is or how to better increase your profitability. Although this is really how you do it. But in the course of pricing, so let's say on this side on pricing, if you increase by 10%, right? So we're going to increase our prices by 10%. And let's say that we decide to give a discount to get people in the door. We're going to discount on this side by 10%. Whatever that might be. Maybe it's not, and a lot of people might be thinking retail. I mean, this is the same situation bodes for those that are doing estimates and quotes out there, people that are doing contractors. You can decide to take a bit of a cut when you're bidding a job. If you're bidding a commercial construction job, you can say, well, we normally do this for 18%, but we're going to do it for 12%. And those are some separate numbers. These are easy round numbers, but those are separate numbers that we have data for. But you'll make an exception in order to get the job, right? Obviously, bidding is a little bit different than flat out pricing, but you got to think your way through it. So if you let's go over here first. Let's start with discounting. It's a little bit, I don't know, it's the negative side of it, right? So in discounting, if I have a 30% profit margin and I discount by 10%, that means that I've got to sell 50% more in order to keep that same margin. My volume is going to have to go up by 50% on top of where it already is in order to keep that 30% profit margin. Okay, so when we look at what that means on our pricing, we've got to determine, again, if we're just setting prices and flat rates, this is not a marketing deal, or we're not trying to get people in the door, BOGOs, things like that. Although BOGOs are a little bit different, like buy one, get one half off is a little bit different because then you're actually only reducing it by a quarter. But anyway, so 30% or 10%, 50% is what you have to increase. That means you have to increase your sales by 50% in order to essentially not break even, but break even on a 30% profit margin, secure that profit margin. But people think, oh, it's great, the discounts, it gets people in the door and things like that, but they may not be banking on the fact, or most likely are not banking on the fact that you're going to have to sell this much more. Your sales are going to have to increase by that much more. Now again, remember the exceptions. If you know what your lifetime value is, blah, 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 you can actually work that into the equation. But for the most part, when people are just generally setting prices, I'm not talking about discounting for a deal or to get people in the door, but if you're generally setting prices and you're discounting, this is an important number to know. So let's go on the other side. Oh, prices, raising prices. I've had so many clients over the years that are so worried. What are you worried about when we raise prices? My customers are going to what? They're going to leave, right? Because I'm charging more, I'm charging too much. They've been saying that paying the same thing for 15 years or 10 years, and it just breaks my heart when they say that. But it also gets me excited because it's an easy way for us to increase their overall profitability in the companies by raising their prices. So when we look at that, everybody's concerned, right, that people are going to be leaving. Customers are going to leave. So what we want to do is we first want to look at making sure that we're actually providing value. You can't raise the price on a lackluster, low-quality product or service. That's just not going to fly. I don't care how loyal your customers are, they're going to question that, right? People who have true loyalty to you because they truly believe in your company and the product or service that you're selling, they are really not going to be affected. The ones that are truly affected and turned off, and I'm talking about a reasonable price increase, not crazy, and we'll talk about this, The ones that don't feel comfortable and that aren't going to come along with you, in a lot of cases, those are price shoppers, and we don't really want them along for the ride anyway, because all they're going to do is they're going to leave you and go to a cheaper price as soon as they find one as it is. So maybe you just happen to be the cheapest price around. We want to keep people that have some kind of brand loyalty and loyalty to our companies. So it has been my experience in, I wouldn't say 100%. Okay, I'll say 100% of the clients that I've raised prices with. I'm not saying that none of them ever lost any customers. What I will say is that in every situation, they were glad that they did, number one. Number two, they were upset that they didn't do it earlier. And number three, they were truly surprised in a positive way at how many of their customers not only stayed with them, but said things like, "It's about time. I was wondering how you guys were making it. You're charging so little." So this is what we want to talk about. 30% profit margin. If we increase, again, not increasing a lot, we're just saying increasing by 10%, which is not a lot. I usually advocate more than that if it's been a long time since you've done it. But if we do that, here's the kicker. If you're worried that increasing prices by 10% is going to hurt you, in order for you to actually break off and lose margin off that 30%, you are going to have to lose 25% of your sales. That means that your general sales, your customers that have been with you potentially for years, if not shorter, depending on the age of your company, that means that 25% of your sales is going to have to decline and say, "Oh, this 10% is too much of an increase. I'm not going to buy from them anymore. They're not the company for me." That's going to have to happen in order to break below the 30% line. It's kind of crazy. And I don't know that I've really seen an example, unless you didn't have a good product or service, you didn't have good brand loyalty, or there was something else going on in the company, or you tried to raise the prices too fast, too frequently, too often, or done it in the wrong way. There's a right way to do it. Usually, and what I've done in the past is you just increase the pricing. And that's pretty much it. So if you're giving value, then you don't have to worry about it. So remember, when we're discounting, bang, we have to work so much harder to get back to base that you really want to make sure that you're not living your life on a discount in your business. And if we're increasing prices, remember that in order for us to break off of that, we've got to have a 25% reduction in sales. I have yet to see that. Okay, in my experience anyway. Maybe somebody else can prove me wrong, or somebody else, I hope you don't have an experience like this, but a lot of the times people just don't think about it. They're afraid, so they do nothing. And when they do nothing, what ends up happening is they end up paying out of their own profits. Adam says, this is great. So many people and small businesses need to hear this. Hey, thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. I'm hoping, Adam, you don't see this a lot, although you might, where, like he says, people just don't value their time. A lot of times, this is another thing I'll add into this, we get in these bubbles, in these silos, right? And we just expect that everybody runs our business the way we do, right? In my business, that people are, so in our businesses with coaching, in my business with my coaching, we have a 30-day write-out policy. We don't have big 12-month, 24-month contracts and all this kind of stuff. There's some kind of special deals. We may have a longer term thing if it's a project, but mostly our coaching is month to month, right? If anybody ever has a problem with that and they're like, I don't know if I want to commit or if I this and that, I don't ever want people to stick in with coaching with me who aren't comfortable. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. So pricing should be something that's more on the back end of a valued relationship than on the front end. Now, I always bring pricing into the beginning of the conversation, but it's always based on the value that I bring. If somebody doesn't see the value that I bring, that's probably not a good match for me. So just remember the value that you bring to the party, that people search for you. And there are people, not that I'm the best coach in the world, but there are people who are going to be able to grow with me in a way that they can't with somebody else. And that's value that I bring. The way I communicate is value that I bring. The way you make your products and services, the way you handle customer service. You might assume that other companies do it. Probably not. And I think if you look around, you'll see that a lot of your competitors, they're really not doing a good job taking care of customers, making sure that they're providing the additional value, promising something and delivering on it, and not having to come up with explanations for why things aren't working well, making it right almost no matter the cost. So I just want you to remember this. When you're scared about pricing, don't be. And if you're excited about discounting, don't be, because it's not helping anybody. So with that, if I actually do have a printout that has pretty much a full scale on both sides of price increases and discounting to show you based on your margins. I don't have a printout in front of me, but based on your margins, it shows what the discounting would be and what you would have to lose, or what the discounting would be and what you are losing based on that discount unless you get a certain volume. And then on the other side, if you flip it over, it's a two-sheet front and back, and it has the price increase and what you would have to lose in order to come off that margin. So I think you'll be surprised. But go ahead and throw out an email to me if you have questions. Foster McCarl, MCCARL @actioncoach.com. I absolutely am shocked and amazed how much I love talking about this stuff. And the reason that I do is not because I dig numbers. I mean, I do, but it's because I've seen the impact that changes like this can make on a business. So give me a call with any questions. If you have any ideas, things that you'd like to see in the show, or anybody that you'd like me to interview, let me know. I'm going to be bringing that online in a bit. So hopefully you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for your time.